Well, Mr. John Oloyede joins us now to continue our focus on this anti-money laundering policy. Thank you for coming on this morning.
Thank you very much.
One can always fall into this temptation of throwing hands in the air and giving up, saying, well, if we see what seems to be playing itself out in this pension probe, we see huge amount of money is being allegedly embezzled by politicians, and in spite of that, you have a whole lot of laws. I mean, look at this anti-money laundering law, for instance. So many stipulations that the banks have got to do to the EFCC, even the CBNs to the EFCC, customs to CBN, CBN to EFCC. So many layers that seem to be parameters for checks and balances. But at the end of the day, it's huge sums of money that we see being bandied for embezzlement here.
Yeah, it's still my common refrain. Nigeria is where it is, not because there are no good laws, but implementation of those laws is what is the problem. We have very good laws. I mean, the anti-money laundering law has been amended. A lot of stipulations are there today. They say 500,000 for individuals, 1 million for companies, 5 million, 10 million. They keep changing it. But then, it is not the law that is bad. It is the practitioners of the law. Those of us, I mean, I was discussing with a colleague and he was complaining that suddenly they are recommending that even solicitors' accounts should be, subject of scrutiny. Why? And I said, why not? I mean, if you've got nothing to hide, why can't your so-called solicitors' accounts be scrutinized? Because it is common, so many, it came out in the papers, a very senior colleague, was arrested, in relation to this Ibori scam, and that he was actually the front, and all that. And today we've not had anything. Or he was arrested, detained, or questioned, and nobody had anything after that. So if Nigerians, it's not about the will to actually catch corrupt persons in the Nigerian society. Everything should not be heaped on government. I mean, the banking institutions. I was reading a particular write-up, and they quoted Bertolt Brecht, one of these writers of those times, and he says, if you want to be a thief, buy a bank or steal a bank. Now, there can be no money laundering without established institutions, banking institutions, being involved, especially in the Nigerian context. You have a situation where you walk into your bank and you say, look, I have 10 million and I want to put it in. How do I? And they tell you immediately, oh, don't worry, we'll give you 20 tellers. And they break it down for you.
Wow.
Your accounting officer will help you break it down, 500, 200, 300, and you pay it in the same day, in different names. It's as easy as that. We take delight in breaking laws. You have a situation where, for instance, the NBA president in this country makes a statement, widely reported, that if lawyers and judges are acting as conduits, or lawyers are acting as conduits. The EFCC has not questioned it. Nobody is following up on that.
Because he must know something.
Sir?
If he makes that statement, he should know something.
Exactly. So that kind of a statement was made by the head of the bar in this country. And nobody is asking questions. Now, though, they are acting as conduits. Yes.
Isn't the fallout of that, isn't that why they say they want to start probing solicitors' accounts as well?
It's not just about solicitors' accounts. It wasn't. There are different. There were different situations. What I'm saying is, was he questioned? Did they ask questions? Do you know anything? It doesn't mean, why should I question him when there's no petition? Because we hear that all the time. There must be a petition before we can act. If a responsible citizen of this country says, this is what is happening, then you call him in. Sir, can you help us? Because you should know. I was talking to a colleague last week in Ibadan, and he said he had to opt out of a matter because, he gave a bill of 50 million for a case that should last, election cases that should last not more than 180 days. And while he was working on that, and And then the client comes and says, look, I want somebody to come and lead you. Of course, this person was happy to even give a bill of 50 million. If it had been negotiated to 10 million, he would jump up and say, thank God, I have made it. So the whole chambers was there. Then suddenly somebody comes, the client comes forward and says, look, I have hired somebody to lead you, and so you have to work with him, I mean, to make the case faster and all that. And then the first person the colleague does is to say, okay, this your bill is too small. We want to review it to 500 million.
You don't say.
And he says, look, I can't, what work are we doing?
500
A 180 days job and 500, and he said he could not go on. He opted out. I mean, those are situations where I can't think of any jurisdiction where a lawyer would earn like $15,000 per day for a job. Because if you are handling an election petition that is going to take 180 days at most, you are not working every day of those 180 days, and you're asking for 500 million. I did a rough calculation. I think it will be about $15,000 per day.
That's about 2.3 million naira per day.
Per day.
Yeah, but what
kind
can
of
the
work?
anti-corruption agency do about that? I mean, those are legal fees.
Well, that's what I'm saying. Now, legal fees are not at large. We also have scales. Do you understand? But the problem is that, I mean, in Nigeria, nobody follows scales, nobody follows the rules. And that you see, you've gotten to a point where if you ask for a small amount of money from some clients, this man doesn't know his job. You have a situation where a judge of a federal high court says, oh, you people you are constituting drains on national resources. You are not doing this job well. These are lawyers representing EFCC. And I'm not taking sides here. He strikes out the case for want of diligent prosecution. And he's accusing 5 senior advocates of Nigeria of not doing their jobs well.
Yeah.
How much was paid? Now this case will be refiled. How much will be paid again? Now from all these cases we are handling, how much has been recovered? Nobody is talking about all that. And yet all these monies pass through banks. Who makes returns?
Now, Mr. Oloyede, that means, when Mr. Bandele spoke, we thought it was just about the banks, and if the judiciary sits up, we can as well try to salvage this situation.
Yeah.
But the way you painted the picture now looks like it is enmeshed in almost all sectors of our national life.
What is money laundering? Some years back, I was doing some research on it, and money laundering, I mean, it's just as the name connotes that historically, it started with the likes of Al Capone. In those days, the best way to clean up money was to set up laundromats where you make money on a daily basis. So dirty things come in and they come out clean. Do you understand? So the person who it's a process, and usually it's open-ended. The ways and means of laundering money is not through just the banks. It comes in different forms. Do you understand? But the best way to capture money launderers is at the point of placement, where when the money is about to be pushed into the system to bring it out clean. So that's why the banks feature more. But really, it's much more than that. I mean, gambling is a big business in this country now. I mean, all you have to do is to walk into a casino. It's in Nigeria now. You buy your chips. You buy chips with cash. You can buy as much as 10 million. And you play for like $1 million. And you say you are not playing again. Then you cash your chips. And then you can take the money to the bank and you have evidence to show that, oh, these are winnings from a casino.
So should we also be looking at lifestyles if we can't actually
God bless you.
Check the banks?
God bless you. I mean, we see it every day around us. It was in the reports very recently that a young man in UK, I think, went to a joint and spent about £200,000 drinking, buying drinks for people. And of course, people around there called to report that, God, we have seen there's a miracle happening here. somebody spending £200,000, and he was arrested on suspicion of fraudulent dealing in stocks. He's a stockbroker. In Nigeria, we don't do that. We celebrate thieves. When people come with money, oh, let me just have my share. So it is not about focusing on banks. Of course, the banks have the bulk of the blame, because I've had situations where I've represented people to buy property, and I've never had anybody questioning me about where this draft is coming from. And they just take it in. I don't get a call from anybody. And I wonder, what is this law all about? I've asked my account officer, do you want me to fill anything? Don't worry, just go.
Yeah, but what about if that's because he knows you? I mean,
maybe he exceed the limit.
Exactly. Maybe there is this
no.
Maybe there's this know your customer policy,
yes.
And he knows you. He knows what you do. He possibly knows you to your house,
yes.
And says, okay, I can vouch for Mr. Oloyede. I think he does pretty well.
I agree. Know your customer, but that is not the end. That does not satisfy the requirements of this Money Laundering Act. You go, once money enters into the system, it should automatically be reported. So knowing me is a different, of course, between me and my accounting officer. I know him, he's a lawyer, he sells property, so this kind of money is coming once in a while. It's not my money. But it goes beyond that. Does it ever get reported to the appropriate agency? Does it ever get reported to EFCC, to CBN? And what do they do about it? Because if it is reported, know your customer stops with the banker. Then if it gets to them and they feel that the frequency of this thing, the rate at which this kind of money comes into this man's account, let's visit him. And you will, if they do that, irregularly, once in a while, you will see how people will run. When they are here, you can actually get people.
Yeah, but maybe this raises questions about the James Ibori matter,
yes,
where he couldn't be convicted for money laundering in Nigeria, but in UK, because we had different perspectives. In fact, some say that he could not also be convicted there, because if they had to convict him there, they had to rely on material evidence, for instance, from Nigeria.
Yes.
And so since that could not be done, they had to come up with an amendment which says, well, based on your lifestyle, you can't go from rags to riches. And so on that basis, your lifestyle calls to question, and then he was convicted.
Yeah.
So,
I don't want to agree with that kind of notion that he was not convicted for money laundering. I don't know whether that's what you're saying, because he was convicted for that, partly.
Okay.
Now, it's not that, they could not get him on that. Money laundering is about, maybe one of the elements of the offense. You are looking at a situation where they say, for you to be guilty of money laundering, first of all, you must establish that the money was stolen. It was ill-gotten wealth. So they have to first of all come back, show that the money he brought in from Nigeria was stolen. Because if it is money, but then money laundering is about you bringing it's about inference to be drawn. You suddenly come into the UK with like £500,000. You are buying properties. Now, first of all, one major way in which they checkmate money launderers, because one way of actually laundering money or cleaning up bad money is to transport it in small sums to another jurisdiction where the law is a bit lax. It's quite unfortunate that somebody will take money from Nigeria and be taking it to the UK, because the laws there are stricter and they are eagle-eyed. But one way of laundering money is you take money from a jurisdiction where you can't spend it to a place where you can spend it. So the law now says you cannot bring in more than £10,000 into the UK at any point in time. And suddenly you are in the UK, you are buying properties worth £350,000, or somebody is buying it. So long as they can establish the nexus between you and that person who says, I got this money from so person. How did the money come in the first instance? So you are already caught by bringing in money which is beyond the requirement. And because you can bring in big money provided you disclose at the point of bringing it in. So once you did not disclose and you cannot show that this money had always been clean money, you will be caught. So the issue of having to amend laws, the Ibori is just one of them. Let us just admit that we have a problem with our system. The system itself needs cleaning up. That's why Ibori would escape from here. The other time I was here, we were talking about how a 170 count plus charge was just struck out. And the common refrain is, oh, the judge has been compromised and settled. That was the impression I had. And I remember trying to reach out that, look, I have since gotten enough of that. Look, it is from the point of filing the charge that the problem comes. It is not, I mean, well, even if the judge is complicit, the problem is at the point of filing the charge. That's why I said when a whole judge of a federal high court says, you people are incompetent, and all they do is they just refile the charge. Danger Daniel, it was struck out, another 141 count charge is being filed. Who pays for that?
You know, the Money Laundering Law Act, is it sufficient enough for us to pursue this fight against it?
It is very, very sufficient. It is not, our problem is not insufficiency of laws. I keep saying that. It is sufficient. Have we even implemented what we have?
It's a very complex situation, if you ask me, because if you look at it, the banks are in this to make money.
Yes.
And most times what you find is that marketers are pursuing, you know, funds right, middle, left, center, everywhere and anywhere they can get it. And then all of a sudden it seems money is coming to them. And then you now have some hurdles. It seems that before them, how do you expect banks, or how are they supposed to function in this kind of environment and still be above board, as it were? Especially when at the end of the year they have to make returns to their shareholders.
I mean, so long as the returns you are making are returns that are made within the ambits of the law, nobody has any problems about that. When a banker, I mean specifically they said Union Bank, is it UBA and another bank, that this pension fund scam, 151 billion naira, passed, I mean, they were lodged in accounts with two banks. Now, for as little as an allegation of plagiarism, the president or prime minister of the country resigned. Now, in this country, the fact is, monies were lodged in accounts with banks, and no returns were made. Having established that, that is enough for heads to roll in the bank. Nobody is talking about that. Nobody is saying. So what I'm saying is, nobody says banks should not get money. Even the whole idea of sending young ladies to do marketing, to solicit for money at any cost, I mean, for consideration offered by the poor ladies, there was noise about that. And they said, no, nobody is willing to come forward to come and substantiate the claim that we are told specifically about that you must just get money from this man. You see, it's a whole process. These things are happening. What starts it, when we don't address that, it leads on to something else. If somebody says, they say, I have a target of 1.something billion, this lady must achieve it. And you say, no, we don't have evidence to support that claim, to substantiate it, so we will not even investigate. So that you leave that. Then these ladies are allowed to go after these men who have means of obtaining money through dirty means. When they get it, the ladies are so ingenious and they come up with ideas of how to launder it. The fact that the banks have to make profit is not enough excuse to breach the law.
A lot lies with the law then.
Yes.
If they've got to address this challenge that we have.
Well, a lot lies with the law. With the law, and the law as it is, even if we practice it 70-80%, it would avail us.
But what would that do for confidence in the banking system? Because I do remember that in 2009, when the CBN governor, tried a very aggressive cleansing of the banking system, what a lot of people accused him of was that he was taking on a system that was conservative and that involved a lot of confidence building, and he was destroying confidence totally. So assuming we are to embark on another aggressive form of cleansing in the banking sector, and just to check money laundering, what do you think that would do for our banking sector?
Now, I just want to correct an impression. It's not that the banking sector is conservative, it's corrupt or corrupted. So we should differentiate between the two. If a system is corrupt and somebody tries to make amends, we don't have to cry wolf where there is none. Now, there is nothing wrong. There are banks that are making money legitimately. There are, I mean, a lot of things are going on. You see, this money laundering thing is not as small. We cannot discuss it in 1, 2, 3, 4 hours. There are so many angles to it. There are situations where, for instance, somebody takes money, big money, cash, to the bank and obtains a loan from the bank. He even gets tax rebate for obtaining the loan. Now, that loan will never be repaid because there's an understanding, unspoken, unwritten agreement that, oh, this money I'm giving it to you. The banks will trade with it. How you get, they know how they get it into the system, and then they say the person took a loan from them. The loan will never be repaid. There will be tax rebate. Government will still lose on it. So, you see, there are all the diverse forms of systems by which this money is going. You and I will end up losing.
You know, Mr. Oloyede, some people would, sorry, Chamberlain, some people would disagree with you on the fact that there was no wolf there. Because if you look at the state of the banks that were rescued,
yes,
what you find is that at the end of the day, they all had to be bought over. And then, you know, the general psyche or the general psychology is that if a bank has had problems, if they have said the managing director of this bank was corrupt and we have had to sack all the directors, chances are that the ordinary person will not want to put his own money there.
I agree, yes. And let me tell you the reason. Most of those banks were never into banking. Most Nigerian banks are still not doing banking. It's either petty trading or money laundering. And that's why they will fail. They will keep failing. You can only build it as far as this. At some point in time, it will crumble like the cookie.
Yeah, but shouldn't we be optimistic with this cash-like policy?
No. I have my doubts. I'm not I don't have to be a banker to know that in the Nigerian. I mean, already, I was reading in the papers today, somebody who said, look, I just did 1 or 2 transactions. I transferred money transfer. And by the time they gave me my statement, this one that just started in less than a week, they are deducted so much from my account. Now, what happens is, just like when the ATM started, you want to collect money, it doesn't give you money, it's deducted. And then you have to wait 1 or 2 weeks. A colleague of mine had waited up to 3 months. They are trading with your money. The money is in the system. You are not going to get anything back. They've taken it off you. So this cash-like thing, we're going to have teething problems. I hope it will be teething problems.
What about, do we have the legal provisions to back this up?
Well, just like you, what they call cash light is what I know about it is based on what has been sent to me by my bankers. They keep on sending all sorts of things. So all I know is that, if you don't withdraw up to this, you have no problem. It's been increased and all that. The legal provisions, we all know that it all is tied up to this money laundering thing. They want to pinpoint people who are dealing in big cash.
Yeah, but shouldn't a customer be signed up or know about what to expect with those dealings? If I don't sign up to any of some of these things, can it be foisted on me? Can deductions be made?
That is the major snag, because right now it is automatic, whether you like it or not. Yeah, I mean, for every transaction I believe you sign up. For every transaction you make, it is there in black and white that, okay, if you do this, this is that. But the problem is, already 1 week into the system, people are complaining that they are being debited for no just cause, for transactions that it is not actually. For instance, somebody says he has done money transfer. What I understand it to mean is, so long as I'm not collecting cash, you are not going to sanction me. But somebody says he did money transfer and they already took money from him.
So that defeats
the
policy.
The service you did yourself from your own computer.
Yeah. It's not about withdrawing cash. The sanction will come if you collect cash beyond the limits. You take it out of the system or you bring it into the system. But now somebody says, and I don't think the person will write on the pages of newspapers, he says, I did money transfer about 2 or 3. And they still deducted. Apparently this man thought, if I transfer 5 million here, and I'm not taking any cash, nothing will happen. But he just got a bill that says, so much has been deducted. They will say, it's a mistake, we will refund. That might take 1 year.